All right, good afternoon, and welcome to Moneyline MMA, covering the next fight night for the UFC, a card that was going to be in Saudi Arabia. They did not put up the money for this card. They must not have been impressed enough with the fighters, which is kind of understandable when you look at it. But in any case, this card is headlined by Rozenstruik versus Shamil Gaziev. Before we get too deep into things, let's quickly discuss our picks from last week in a card where Jose and I had a lot of agreements, almost no disagreements from Jose and I. And in overall, we both went 2-2-1 because Rosas Jr. did not end up fighting that night. He ended up getting an illness apparently. Like, it was really weird watching the broadcast, and he just was supposed to walk out, and they just were like, huh? And they just kind of like, I mean, I know they're at work, right? But the announcers just kind of just like move on, like nothing happened. It's like, that's kind of significant. The dude was gonna fight on his home turf, but it's kind of interesting because this card this week seemed to need another fight on it, and now they have said fight because that got moved to today, or at least it's rumored to be pushed to today. I don't know if that's signed in contract. I don't know if Raul is currently in Vegas ready to do that. In any case, Jose and I's five weights both hit. Jose's Daniel Zellhuber and my Yasmin Yargway both hit. Jose is on an absolute banger streak. Jose has not put up a losing five weight in 2024. I mean, I'm just giving you a second to, pat yourself on the back there. That's impressive. He's going to continue that streak today, I think.
Oh yeah, bro. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, we've been having some really solid picks this year, and sometimes we don't hit well, but luckily, this year we've been, on the right track, and even going 2-2, like every time I feel like when we get losses, it's like reasonable losses almost like it wasn't no BS call, as in like either it was it just completely got put out for sure, knocked out or something like that. Something just the other fighter made a statement. Like it's always been
Mm-hmm.
justifiable losses, never any BS losses. So that being
True.
said, we are running with a good streak. We both are on the positive this year with wins. So I would love to keep let's keep this streak going.
Love it. Love it, man. And you make a good point because our losses last week was Moreno and Yair, the main and co-main, both favorites in the main co-main lose. Yair had Ortega on the ropes, thought the fight was over, gassed out, couldn't finish him, and gets finished, man. Just the exact thing that I would have been worried about because of the veteran. Oh, jeez, that was tough. Yair, I think, is going to be back at the top of that division soon, but he's going to have to finish next time instead of tire out. And then, of course, Brandon Moreno, like, in my opinion, he wins round one and two. But one of the judges had, or two of the judges even, I think, had him losing round two. It was just, this whole scoring of that fight to me was so weird. I really felt like the people opposed to the current scoring system or anything like that in the UFC had absolute justification. That Saturday, seeing the scoring for that main event, it was so different that one of the judges had 49-46 Moreno, and the other two have like 48-47. Excuse me. Oh, rival. Sorry, I have a dry throat. So it's just unfortunate that it's that different in a main event. But hey, in any case, close losses. That's the point of saying all that. Jose's right. The ones we got in the L category there were close.
I
Moving
do
on.
want to add something too.
Okay.
Actually, like, and then we also do call them too when we call our shots. Sometimes, we go as far as saying when, and we even like Manuel Torres last week. We said it too. Like, if you're gonna go for him winning it, might as well just say it's in the first round. I would have assumed more of a TKO, but yeah, he showed how. And by this say he's got just about as many submissions as TKOs. So that leave it to like viewers' discretion whether if you think he's gonna win the first round, how you see a TKO or submission, but it's just stuff like that we throw out too. Like we just it'd be more than just saying like, hey, we just think he's going to win. There's times where if we really feel confident enough, we'll say like when. Me, it's mostly when within like it was gonna be within the distance. Um, unless if it's a guy like Gerald Mearshart or something when he went on his submission tear, like he got some in the first round as well. And I'm like, and remember I called that fight too, which was a while ago. But I'm like, if you're gonna bet on it, might as well get a first round submission, which he did. So that's something too. Just like we really do like look at these fights a lot and really take all things into consideration.
Even better, yeah, that's a great point, man. We did. I do remember saying that, and I almost forgot. Like we did have that conversation about it ending early, and look at it's a first round finish for Torres. So we're that's awesome, and we're gonna continue bringing that heat for sure. Quick reminder to everybody that is new, we bring our picks in a 5 weight system where we take all of the fights on a card. We pick the 5 that we're most confident in and weigh them in order of 1 to 5, with 5 being the heaviest weight, aka the most confident pick of this fight card, in just terms of who's going to win. For me, we're starting with our 5 weight picks. We're always given our most confident picks off the gate. And for me, I'm going with a prodigy, a prospect. And by saying that on this card, if you're familiar, if you've looked at some of the matchups on this card, you currently have no clue who I'm talking about because there are multiple prospects on this card. But this one, I'm going with Mohammed the Punisher Mokaev, the 10-0 phenom, to beat Alex Perez. That is my 5 weight most confident pick of the afternoon. Look, Mohammed Mokaev is a prospect, a prodigy. He's upcoming in this division. He's pretty much walked through everybody he's fought in the UFC. The only person he didn't finish was Charles Johnson when he took him down 12 times, which, okay, I will agree. You know, if you have to take someone down 12 times, that does mean that they're getting up. So is your wrestling good enough to hold them down? If they keep getting up, I don't know. But he got almost 12 minutes of control time in that fight, all over Charles Johnson, but he's also proven his striking ability. It's not like he has to go into every fight and win via taking people down, although he does land takedowns in every fight. And submission is the way he's won his 4 fights in the UFC that are within the distance. That being said, he's fighting a guy, Alex Perez, who I will agree he has a good takedown defense, at least percentage wise, at 77%. That's a good percentage, but Alex Perez is no stranger to have been submitted in the past. In fact, his last loss to Pantoja was a submission loss. His loss before that to Figgy was a chokeout guillotine loss. And I really understand that those are top. Of course, Pantoja's the current champion and Figgy's the former champion, top of the line guys. But I mean, if Mokaev is the guy that we've seen him be currently so far in the UFC, this will be another walk in the park. I'm going to leave it to Jose here with the final comment that Alex Perez has had so many cancellations and failed appearances that he has not beaten anybody in the UFC currently on the roster. Every single win that Alex Perez has in the UFC, said fighter is not any longer in the UFC. I think that is a major downfall. Alex Perez does not have the experience as of late. He did not fight at all in 2023, other than a draw to in a grappling match, not even an MMA match. So that being said, Mokaev's just going to walk through him. I'm taking Mokaev as a more confident pick than Umar, who we're probably going to be talking about pretty soon. But in any case, give me 5 on Mokaev. Very, very confident. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, I agree with you. I have Muhammad Mokaev as well, and yeah, he's it's he. I have him as winning, and I would have him higher. I feel like I'm gonna definitely be judged because how low he is, but he would definitely be higher. He is my 1 weight, not because like not because I'm just don't like I'm nervous about it or anything. Like it's just how much confident I am in the other guys as well. There's a lot of dudes that I feel really strong about on this card. And when I was ranking my order, Makayev, I had him and I was gonna, if I were to redo this, he'd probably definitely be out there either my 4 or my 3 spot. Um, that being said, unfortunately he did fall down to my 1 spot just because of but again, almost like a couple of these guys I can shuffle around because I feel this super confident about them. But yeah, you nailed it on the head. Makayev, he's such a dangerous threat, especially when it comes to the grappling. And above that too, he has a 4.5 reach inch. He has a 4.5 inch reach advantage over Alex Perez. So I think on the feet that's gonna come in handy, and he's a bit taller too, just by 1 inch. So him being the slightly taller guy with a longer reach, I think he's going to get the better end of these exchanges, which is gonna I think just flow in to his grappling. And I definitely expect takedowns from him. And like you said, Alex Perez is coming off a couple submission losses, and out of his 7 losses, 5 of them come via submission. So it's very realistic. I feel strong that Muhammad could be very live to get a submission in within this fight for a victory. So for that being said, yeah, I agree with you on Mohamed Makayev, and he's my one weight, but again, I would have him higher, and I think he's going to win. And if he were to win, I would think he most likely would do it via submission. So that's how I feel about that fight, Nick.
Good call. Yeah, I think submission is the most likely candidate there. If you were going to do that, I think I can try and pick up some quick odds on that. Just because I am curious if it's up. No, it's not. No odds. No odds yet on Mokaev by submission, but I do agree that that is the most likely outcome. Of course, 4 of his 5 UFC wins in his 5-0 streak are by submission, and honestly, one other thing I want to mention too is Mokaev is my 5 weight because of the value on top of the confidence. So to me, this is a blend, right? Because I'm very confident in Umar winning, as you guys will see. But the thing is Umar is like unbettable because of how much of a favor he is. But we're looking at Mohamed Mokaev right now at minus 290. That's pretty juiced, don't get me wrong. But that should also be at minus 800. In my opinion, this difference is a minus 800 worthy difference. Tim Elliott has shown no ability to counter grapple somebody. None. Like, this should be minus 800. And the fact that you're getting it at minus 290, I understand that's a lot, but that is such still a great value. There's no value in minus 900 for Umar. There's definitely value in 290 for Mokaev. So just closing with my thoughts there on why Mokaev ends up being my 5 weight. I think his value just supreme above all. So let's move on to Jose's 5 weight pick.
Yes. So, yep. Again, yeah, that one we both agree, Makayev, and yeah, going to my 5 weight. This is actually the card opener between Umar Nurmagomedov and Bekskat Almakhan. Right now, Umar Nurmagomedov, yeah, he is the betting favorite at minus 900, while Almakhan is the betting underdog at plus 520. Right now, Bekskat Almakhan, he's making his UFC debut, which is, I think, a big reason why he's definitely the underdog in this one, like just a big underdog. It being Umar, no question, he's going to be the favorite. We know what he's going to bring forward, what he's going to bring. But that being said, making your debut against Umar, that just says a lot what the UFC thinks of Bekskat from Kazakhstan. He's only 26 years old, and he's just only lost one fight back in 2020, but since then he's a stopping machine. I do think he's going to give Umar a little bit of trouble, more trouble than what people think. Just because, it's his UFC debut. That's definitely why he's a big underdog. I think moving forward, he probably won't be as big of an underdog anymore. But that being said, you can't deny Umar. Umar's already been in the UFC for a while, and he's been looking phenomenal, doing what he does. And when it comes to his striking is just as good as his grappling, if not better. When it comes to striking, he lands 4.85 significant strikes per minute and only absorbs 0.73. So, and not to mention again his grappling, he has out of his 16 wins, 7 of them come via submission. He has another 7 via decision and only 2 via KO/TKO. But again, even though he doesn't have as many KOs and TKOs, his striking is still extremely dangerous. Beska seems like he himself actually has like a similar style to Umar Nurmagomedov, and that being said, so I think you're just gonna have two aggressive dudes coming at each other. I can't say much about Almakan, to be honest, just because I haven't seen enough of him, to be honest, that, him not being in the UFC. But again, out of his 14 wins, 12 of them come via KO/TKO. So this, I think this is going to be a fun fight both on the feet and when it comes to grappling. But that being said, I'm going with the guy that's been in the UFC and dominating the UFC longer, which is Umar Nurmagomedov. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
I agree. I have Umar. And I have Umar as my 4 weight. So very confident with Umar. He's going to be Moneyline MMA's lock of the week. Although, as I said in my previous handicap, from Okayev, man, I'm just not that's a lock of the week. I'm not really going to be betting on, I don't think, because you're not the fact of the matter is if you make some massive huge parlay, you're like, holy crap, here we go, right? And then you add Umar in there, you're going to get like 0.05 on your little bet multiplier, or you're going to get like you're just going to get a fraction of a dollar on your penny, right? Or on your 100. And it's not good, man. I don't think the value's there at all. So I can't. And the thing is you make a good handicap for Bexot, but a lot of it I think is just uncertainty as to why Umar. I mean, some places he was even a -1,000. I mean, we're getting the 900 number from FanDuel. He's even more than that at some books. He's 1,000. I think a lot of it is just people don't know who Bexot is, so why bet on him? Now he's a great fighter. Like, he's the #1 Kazakhstani bantamweight. So like, I it's hard to say that means a whole lot, because that means he's fighting in their little leagues and stuff, right? He's not. But at the same time, that is pretty impressive too. I don't think he. I guess what I'm trying to say is I don't think he gets finished like in 30 seconds. I don't think it's going to be like when you bet on someone -900, that's like a clean, like, he wasn't even close, get out of here. Like Bo Nickel finished him in a minute and a half. Like, I'm not convinced that's going to be the case. I'm really not. I would almost bet over 1.5, but that's kind of risky because we don't know Bexot's like true abilities to counter grapple. He was submitted in one of his pro fights in the Octagon League of Kyrgyzstan or whatever. So who knows, right? But at the same time, he submitted a whole bunch of people. The uncertainty for me is why he's my 4 weight. He being Umar, and why I'm not really going to be putting too much money on it. But I do have Umar as a confident pick here.
Yeah, that's safe to say. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Bescott. Yeah, he's definitely going to be put on everyone's radar, win or lose. I think they're going to see just a lot of fighters that are produced out of that region, just out of those states: Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Dagestan, you name it. They're just all just phenomenal fighters and really taking over the sport. So I think this is just going to be a really fun match. And again, him being put against Umar again. For his UFC debut is just, that says a lot of what the UFC really thinks of him. So that being said, yeah, that we both agree on Umar. He is my 5 weight and he is your 4 weight.
And just as a quick thought here, I literally just thought of this right now. What are your thoughts? Bexot was sent a contract. Here's your fight, sir. You have a UFC contract. Here's your fight. Would you like to fight Umar Nurmagomedov? He doesn't have to sign, right? He doesn't have to be like, yeah, I want to fight him. Yeah. Give me the best, most touted prospect you have in your division, right? So I'm wondering how much is it like he's that confident that he's going to come in and beat Umar, or is he just dumb? Like, because there's really a thin line there. Because what else are you thinking when you sign on that dotted line? I just want a paycheck? Like, I'm just saying, if Bexos is that confident where he's like, yeah, that Umar guy, in his Kyrgyzstani language, I don't know how they would speak, right? That Umar guy, he's good, but not good for me. I can kill him or something. Or is he like, I don't know. That's just interesting because there's no chance he doesn't know the hype behind Umar and all of that, right?
Oh yeah, I think he definitely knows, and I agree with you. He looks at it two ways. Like he would have not accepted the match unless he didn't think he could win, which is for sure. There's also the other way where when the UFC comes knocking at your door, it's you never know when you get that opportunity again. So take it while you can. And I'm just interested. Why did they go? Why did they outsource to find? Is there like a backstory why they outsourced to get him as opposed to just pairing Umar up with somebody else in the division? Or do
That's
the UFC really think like, yo, this guy actually could be a top 5 guy?
that's a great question. I think I don't know any backstory behind it. No, I would like to assume that Bexat was just like recruited in like differently because he had put together a pretty impressive win streak. And it looks like his last fight was only what? It's this 26th, so his last fight was barely 3 months ago when he knocked someone out via punches in Octagon 52. So he's been like really active, and I think maybe he just had like a good promotional crew that was able to get his name out to someone who mattered at the UFC. So I'd hesitate to assume that they signed Bexat just to fight Umar. But the fact that they feed him to Umar first is crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they did then. And maybe they did because I think the UFC does know like you can't just even though he's got the name and the whole thing going on with the Dagestani stuff, Umar shouldn't just be thrown to the top end of the bantamweight division quite yet.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
I don't know. That's hard because according to Tapology, he's the rank 8 right now, and he's fighting guys that aren't even like he's fighting. How many top 10 guys? Just for reference, he's ranked above Rob Font. Would Rob Font fight a guy in his UFC debut? There's just no way. That would be dog. That'd be bat. So that's some perspective also as to why you have a guy at minus 900, right? What's going on here? What top 10 guy in the UFC fights an unranked guy in his debut for the UFC? It's not like it's not even like he was on Contender Series.
Yeah.
That's and I think I've said it before on the show. If not, I'm reiterating it here. I firmly don't believe that the sport of the UFC, at least as of MMA, as the UFC puts it, is rigged. But I do think the UFC puts narratives together in their heads and puts fights together accordingly. Right? I think it's fair to say that they do matchups specifically to maybe like how about I've said it before with the Tony Ferguson fight. They feed him to the wolves with Paddy Pimblett. Let's get all these new UFC fans to like our guy. Let's get the old heads that like Tony Ferguson to like this new guy too. I think Umar's going to get some of that treatment. I think he's going to get set up in a way to here's some guys that make you look good. Here's some guys that maybe aren't the greatest challenge, but they're good. They're not bad. They're good. And then
It's like a quick path to the title almost. Like,
yeah, because
it's a cleaner path. I feel like it's not like a grind every fight and like Bilal Muhammad right now. Like, how many fights has he gone in and fighting top dudes? Or no, I hear what you're saying. Or
true.
it's almost like a because a lot of people said the same thing about Islam and Khabib too. Like the level of dudes they fought to get to the title were not as tough as like other dudes have. Like Dustin Poirier, for example, hasn't even been a real champ, but he's beat like the who's who, and he's definitely had a tougher path to the title than Islam. But
100%.
Yeah, that's how I view it too. It's kind of interesting how these Nurmagomedov guys are doing some.
Dude,
I don't know.
it almost makes me feel like they need to do and I get that there'd be instances that would probably make this a bad rule, but like in general, I feel like it wouldn't even be that bad if they just said fuck it. The anybody to get their first shot at the belt, any prospect, any UFC fighter coming into the UFC to get their first shot at the belt has to win 2 fights in the top 10.
Oh yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And that's not even too much to ask, right? Like if you're I'm trying to think of a good example because there really isn't. Like if like Hernan Ferreira, right, the guy who just knocked out Ryan Bader, is like screw this, I'm going to the UFC, and he just like knocks out Cyril Gane. He just like makes him look bad. they would fast track him to the belt, but I feel like
Oh yeah.
you would need 2 fights.
Oh yeah.
Two
That was
fights
a well
in the top 10.
Yuri Prochazka was a perfect example. I think he
Oh,
only
true.
fought his third fight. I think was a title fight.
And Pereira was close, but Pereira fought more than just two. He still had to fight Strickland first. He had to fight a couple of dudes before even Izzy once.
Yeah.
Strickland being the most memorable. But in any case, I don't mean to ramble on. That's a great conversation, though, man. I think those are the kinds of conversations that we should be having because not everybody else will talk about stuff like that. And
Yeah.
I think it's legitimate to see some of those storylines being crafted. And sometimes the UFC can't control it, right? I'm not saying they control the storyline. They're just crafting one. And then, okay, that's what happened. Let's craft this next idea and see what happens with that one. And like it's a magical like sense of they're building a story and just letting the outcome happen. It's actually really cool. And with that said, we can use that to our advantage when picking these fights. Umar will get the win on Saturday night for sure. Just be careful betting all your money on it because he's just got some bad odds. Enough rambling though. I'll move on. I believe it's my turn to cover a pick. So we've covered my 5 and 4 weight already though. So I'm going to go with my 3 weight. And we're going to go right to the main event with my 3 weight. Finally, no beating around the bush. We're going to heavyweights here, assuming they both make weight. Ha ha. Just like to poke fun at the big boys. We got Jairzinho Rozenstruik fighting Shamil Gaziev. Rozenstruik's obviously kind of a one-dimensional, like very strong, like always has the puncher's chance, but has the downside of either getting KO'd or submitted like he did earlier last year against Jailton Almeida, who's now come on as a pretty big prospect. So it's not a bad loss to take. In fact, none of Rozenstruik's losses are to like bottom end bad fighters. Maybe the worst fighter he's lost to is probably Volkov. And Volkov's a good fighter. So Rozenstruik deserves to have some respect on his name, no doubt about it. But he's also not like the most catchy. Like it makes sense as to why Saudi Arabia didn't bother to like fund this whole card because they're like this main event you put together could be a prelim on pay-per-views, if not even that. So to me, I don't even think these guys have the conditioning to go 5 rounds. Like I feel like Rozenstruik would just be like dying. He would just be like on his knees in the 5th round, like I can't move. Maybe that's being a little too rude to the poor guy, but in any case, I got Shamil here for my 3 weight. Shamil does have a lot less overall experience in professional fighting, but I think he brings to the table what he needs to beat Rozenstruik, which is just clean, crisp striking, knocking out Martin Buday. Of course, the puncher's chance is always real for Rozenstruik, and that's why you don't see me putting Gaziev as a 5 weight or even a 4 weight. I'm certainly not as confident, but Rozenstruik is very hittable. He has a negative striking differential, and what I mean by that is he takes more hits than he gives. And I think he's going to continue to take more hits. Shamil doesn't even absorb 1 strike per minute, according to UFC stats. Now, that's only on two fights worth of data, and that's not the most abundant of a sample size. But one of them was against Martin Buday, who's a somewhat respected heavyweight, and better than a few of the wins that Rozenstruik has in his career. Gaziev is also the bigger man, at least a little bit taller, and he fills out every single pound of that 265 weight limit where Rozenstruik kind of hovers in the 240s. So for pretty much all those reasons, man, on top of the fact that even Shamil, although he's not landed a takedown in the UFC, he has some submission wins under his belt as well in some previous organizations professionally, and I would look for that to be a potential play for him as well. If he feels like Rozenstruik is swinging for the fences and he feels like he might catch one of those and get knocked out like Volkanovski did, he could do something that Volkanovski didn't and go for a takedown and submit Rozenstruik, because that's very clearly a big weakness of his. And as I said, Shamil does have some grappling experience and wins in his career being from Dagestan, Russia. For those reasons, he's my 3 weight. Jose, what do you think?
Yeah, Nick, with you, I actually agree with you. I have Shamil. He's actually also my 3 weight, and yeah, I agree. He's not been in the UFC as long as Gaziev Rozenstruik, and Gaziev Rozenstruik has fought, a lot of dudes already from, he beat Alistair Overeem last minute in the fifth round. He beat former heavyweight champ Andre Arlovsky and Junior Dos Santos. But as of lately, he's been a little more on the losing side, and he does have a win over Chris Dawkins, but that doesn't really mean much. He's not even in the UFC anymore. And that being said, he's kind of has slowed down a bit. And before his MMA career, he did have a an extensive kickboxing career as well. But I think in this matchup, I feel confident with Shamil. Shamil's actually only 1 year younger than him. But something that Shamil has that isn't really showcased even on his record, you think he's more of a striker guy, but yeah, like you said, he is from Dagestan, and he does have a background. He actually trained with Khabib and Khabib's dad, so does have a smothering Dagestani style wrestling like Khabib as well. So I think he's gonna just take Arsenio Rozenstruik down. I think he is going, even though the UFC doesn't show a lot of grappling for Shamil, he does have a Dagestani style wrestling work. So I do expect him to take down Arsenio Rozenstruik, and I expect him probably just to ground and pound him and just make it a long night. And I think either because it's the big guys, it is the big guys. So I think this fight could end within the distance, but if not, I can straight up see Shamil going the distance for a unanimous decision win. But he can slip in a submission or a TKO on the ground and pound. So that being said, yeah, I got Shamil, and I think his path to victory is probably going to be like we're going to see a good amount of wrestling and ground and pound as opposed to more maybe on the feet, because I'm assuming on the feet he's not going to want to spend a lot of time with someone who has the striking experience as Arsenio Rozenstruik. So that being said, yeah, I feel strong with Shamil as my three-way as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great point with the Dagestani wrestling, man. And I think that's going to be a big play for him come Saturday night. For that reason, man, I think that's a great pick. I mean, you can get Shamil at minus 156. So that's betting $156 to win 100. I think that's worth it. I think you get some good value, no doubt about it, on a guy who's, he's in his mid 30s, as Jose and I were discussing. So he is kind of in quotations a prospect for UFC standards, and then he's a young in the UFC career wise, but he isn't young at all. And I think this is the time for him to shine. If he loses against a guy like Rozenstruik, he's going to have to fight and claw back to even get towards the higher end of the heavyweight division. It's really not that competitive right now, in my opinion, in the UFC until you get to the top 5 of the heavyweight division. So, for those reasons, I think Gaziev has his eyes on the prize. I think he finishes Rozenstruik within the distance, but there's also a decent chance, like you said, that he just smothers Jairzinho and just goes for the decision win, knowing he can just win 3 or 4 rounds by sitting on his back. Because there's just no way in my mind that Rozenstruik's going to get up. He's going to be exhausted. Now, keep in mind, the one thing is that you'd be watching out for is the fact that Rozenstruik, I would say 2 out of 10 times, is going to be able to land a strike as Shamil is potentially coming in for a takedown. And if Rozenstruik times like an uppercut or a knee or something at the right time, Shamil is lights out very quickly. No human being on this planet could withhold a strike like that and be conscious. So that's what they call the striker's chance in the UFC. Jairzinho will always have that, but we're betting against it on Saturday night.
Oh yeah. Jairzinho, I mean, like I mentioned, like against the Alistair Overeem fight, he was on his way to lose that, and then just last minute just threw that out. So that's something Shamil should just definitely know. Yeah, Shamil should definitely keep that on the lookout, especially if it's a 3-round fight, not a 5-round. He's got to just have to stay on it with the wrestling and just keep smothering them if he's not able to knock him out.
This will be 5, though.
Oh yeah, my bad, man. This is a 5-round fight. This is the main event. You're right. So it is. Yeah. So if he makes it that far, yeah, you're right. Yeah. Then okay. So yeah. So keep that in mind, Shamil.
Yep. And that's exactly it, man. And Rozenstruik will know that. Like, part of me thinks Rozenstruik's going to be knowing, like, okay, there's only a minute left in this round. I'm just going to let him wrestle me out because I'm going to rest. Like, I could totally see him just, like, using it as a time to get a breather. And then he goes into the next round just swinging And I'd be nervous if I was Shamil because you don't want to go in for a takedown when this dude's swinging. He'll knock anybody out.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for real. So, yeah.
cool. Well, we agree on that one, and we'll go to Jose's four-weight.
In my four-way, this is the middleweight bout between Eric Anders and Jamie Pickett. Right now, Eric Anders is the betting favorite at minus 370, while Jamie Pickett is the betting underdog at plus 265. Jamie Pickett, he's lost four in a row. Most recently to Josh Frem in a three-round unanimous decision loss, and then before that, as we all saw, Bo Nickel via arm triangle in the first round. This is pretty. If you know, this is a fight, make it or break it. I think almost for both of these guys too. Eric Anders has been in the UFC for a while, and he's just kind of been lingering like in the later, like not even the top 10 really. And Jamie Pickett, I'm kind of surprised he's getting another shot. But here it is. I can't imagine him still being in the UFC after a fifth loss. And Eric Anders, he's just coming off a loss to Marc Andre Barrial back in last year of 2023. Very unanimous decision. So this one, I'm going with Eric Anders though, just because how not good Jamie Pickett's honestly looked in his last four fights. He's not looked good at all, and he has a 13-10 record. And this one, I'm taking your boy Eric Anders. He has, out of his 15 wins, 9 come via KO/TKO. And the thing about it is, Jamie Pickett has shown that he does not. He doesn't have a chin, and he gets hit a lot, and he can get submitted. And this one, Eric Anders, he goes crazy. We've seen him, go back and forth with dudes, and he has power. He does have power. Again, nine out of his 15 wins come via KO/TKO. But he's been in the fight game long enough that I think he should be good enough to at least get a decision win. Eric Anders, he hasn't really been anyone too impressive. I think the most impressive one I see on his record is Jared Mearshalt back in 2019. And then even before that, probably the most impressive one I actually see is Brandon Allen in 2017 for LFA. So that was a long time ago. That's definitely not the Eric Anders that is in the UFC today. This one, I feel confident in your boy. I just how not good Jamie Pickett is. The one thing I am kind of worried about Jamie Pickett though is that he does have a 7-inch reach advantage. That is the only thing, is just how big he is in terms of the reach advantage against Eric Anders. So he may be picking him up and piecing him up a bit, but I think Eric Anders, just for how much experience he has in the UFC and how not good Jamie Pickett is, I think it should just not. Almost, I don't want to say a walk in the park, but pretty close to it. So I can see why he's a big favorite as well. This one, I got your boy Eric Anders. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
I don't officially have a pick on this one. I lean Eric Anders in my, just like looking at them. If I was to make a pick, definitely would take the favorite here. Eric Anders is, I believe, a heavier favorite than Mohamed Mokaev, which to me is crazy. I did want to make that comparison. I think Mokaev is insanely undervalued. If he's not even as big a favorite as Eric Anders. But I do agree Eric Anders is the better fighter here. I'm glad he's still getting some respect after his loss to Marc-Andre Barrial. I thought he was going to win that fight going into it, and it was somewhat close. It wasn't necessarily like a blowout or anything, but that being said, Anders seems to be one of those guys that's going to be able to beat like the low to mid end guys, but not the high end guys. And I don't really consider Jamie Pickett, like you said, he's far from a high end guy, far from it. Maybe you could have made an excuse before the fight against Josh Fremd, like he got submitted by Kyle DeKaus and Bo Nickel, so it's like, okay, he's just facing a lot of grapplers that are really good. Getting submitted in the first round, like it's tough to, once you get in there with a striker, you'll be fine. But then Josh Frem beats him by decision with no takedowns and ended up like almost submitting Jamie Pickett. It's just, I don't know, it was like 10 minutes on the ground too. So like, if I was you, what you highlighted about the reach advantage would be the one thing I'd be concerned about, because Jamie Pickett truly really hasn't had a fight in like since like 2020 in the UFC where both dudes stood on their feet for more than like 4 or 5 minutes. It's like constant takedowns or getting submitted early. I think we'll end up seeing what happens. But I agree that that Jamie Pickett is about to get fired from the UFC.
Yeah, yeah, I agree with you. I honestly, even the win or lose, I don't see why they would keep him around. Um, but that's just me. I don't want to hate on Jamie Pickett too much because again, just because of his reach advantage, I will say that that is
Oh, you are lagging a little bit.
the one thing I have, like I see reach advantage, but
Oh,
when it comes to all good.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah. Now we're good. Now we're good.
Oh,
Sorry,
oh,
we missed a good chunk of that.
oh, my bad. I was just gonna say the only thing about Jamie Pickett, in terms of the only value I see in him is being an underdog, is that reach advantage, is him catching Eric Anders possibly and just playing him out, just kind of like in almost just an all out like power punch or something like that with that long reach. That's the only thing like I see some value in him, but at the end of the day, Eric Anders I think is still the better striker. He lands 3.56 significant strikes per minute, while Jamie Pickett only lands 2.84. So, and to be honest, I think Jamie Pickett probably does have a longer reach advantage than majority of the UFC fighters in general. So it kind of shows that he's not really utilizing his reach advantage to its full potential. So I feel that that's yeah, I feel definitely more confident with Eric Anders striking. So that being said, yep, I got Eric Anders as my four weight.
All right, then moving on to my two weight. Getting close to the end here. I think we got two more fights to cover for you guys. My two weight of Saturday afternoon is going to lie, and who knows what order this fight card is going to be in. I think this is currently listed as the second or third of six in the main card. But with Raul Rosas Jr. and Ricky Turcios being rescheduled potentially to this card, seems to be up in the air. But in any case, I'm picking Steve Erceg in the flyweight division to defeat Matt Schnell. And it's sad that I'm saying, like, I have a lot of respect for Matt Schnell. And honestly, the fact that he's a plus 240 dog is definitely not the worst value I've seen on this card. That is tempting dog money because Matt Schnell is a dog himself. He's the kind of guy who could be almost out of the fight and still find his way to win. And you absolutely have to finish him. Or make it super convincing to get the win against him. In fact, the three most recent of Schnell's losses since 2019, the only losses he's gotten in the UFC were all finishes, and they were finishes before the third round, either in the first or second round. So Matt Schnell needs to be finished, or he'll finish you. He was going to get finished by Suma Dwergi, ended up choking him out with blood leaking all over the mat. It was impressive. And I think that one fight alone kind of just changed my perspective on Matt Schnell. But he really isn't. I say all that to say is he's not like a god tier fighter, of course. Steve Erceg has limited UFC experience, and both of those fights were decision wins. But I think he's just a technically better fighter overall, and I think he's gonna able. I mean, obviously it's only my two weight; it's nothing crazy. But Steve Erceg to me is versatile enough. He has the similar capabilities to Matt Schnell on the ground for sure. Steve Erceg has more submission wins than Matt Schnell does. So I don't think it's going to be one of those things where Schnell can scramble and try and make a wrestling game out of it to win, because Steve Erceg will win in that category. So I really, to me, this is just a situation where Steve Erceg is the more calculated striker. He's the better grappler. He's the better MMA fighter overall. And I think going forward after this fight, he's one of those fighters on this card that will get a lot more respect in his next card. But Steve Erceg still already is a minus 330 favorite anyways, so he's still getting some good respect anyway.
That's nice. See, this fight I actually did not place a weight on, but I agree with you on Steve Erstech. Matt Schnell, dude, he is extremely dangerous. Definitely value in him as an underdog, but he's been definitely on a roller coaster of a ride, and he's definitely lost a good competition. Alexander Pantoja, Brandon Royval, Matus Nicolau, this is almost like a fight that reminds me of the Umar and Becka Alkaman fight, where it's like, even though Steve Erceg has been in the UFC, already has 2 fights under his wing. It just says a lot. Just kind of throwing him in already was a dude that's already kind of seen a good amount of UFC competition, so it's really testing the waters. I feel like almost throwing like, yeah, it is literally throwing the vet to the new up and coming guys. So this will definitely stay alive if Steve Erceg gets this win, which I agree with you too on this one. So I have Steve as well. I'm no weight on it, but yeah, if he gets this win, he's a young guy. He'll definitely be a problem in this division in the future.
No doubt about it, man. So, all right, well, that brings us to the last fight that we'll be discussing tonight, and I believe that is your two-weight.
Yes, so for my 2 weight, this is the fight between Vitor Petrino and Tyson Pedro. Right now, Vitor is the betting favorite at minus 290, while Tyson Pedro is the betting underdog at plus 215. This one was kind of a tough one for me. That's why it's so low on my weights. It's a 2-1. It's a 2 for me because I did originally want to go with Tyson Pedro, but after thinking of it, Vitor, he's never lost, and he's not been in the UFC as long either. But when he has been, he's been, he's won in every possible way you can think of. He's shown right off the bat that he can go the distance and win unanimously. He's shown that he has submission skills, and he's just most recently shown that he has KO power too over Modestas Boscas, so Bukasas. So that being said, like, yeah, he can do it all, and out of his 10 wins, 7 of them do come via KO/TKO. So it is actually pretty cool to see that within his first 2 fights, official UFC fights, that he's showing other ways of him winning besides just his KOs. Because before his UFC debut on Dana White's Contender Series, he did get a second round KO, and before that, another second round KO, and just been KO TKO and machine pretty much. That's the story of his career. But yeah, only 26 years old. Dude actually looks like he's older than me. And Tyson Pedro is 32. Not that old either. Tyson Pedro is still, can still hang in there with it. But I agree. This one I'm going to go with Vitor. Just in general, he does not have a long reach advantage, which I always like to. I always like to look at the reach advantages. And but when it comes to the striking, I think both guys are going to be pretty close. Both land around around 3 significant strikes per minute. They're around the same ballpark, and as well as much as they both absorb around 2.5 significant strikes per minute. They're both in that ballpark. When it comes to the grappling, I think Vitor will probably be the one to engage the grappling more than Tyson Pedro. Tyson does have 5 submission wins, but again, I haven't, until Vitor Petrino loses, that's really when we'll know what his weaknesses are. Whether if he loses in the 3rd or 5th round, we know that maybe it's some gas tank issues. If he got submitted, maybe they know to expose that. Or if he gets knocked out, he doesn't have a chin. You just got to expose that as well. So until then, haven't seen him lose in any type of way. So hard to bet against him. But because he's not been in the UFC as long, that's why he's lower on the weight for me, and that's why he's my 2 weight. What are your thoughts on this fight, Nick?
Yeah, I also have. I agree with you on Petrino, but he's my one weight for pretty much most of the same reasons. Like, just hesitation that it's Petrino's, like, probably his litmus test too for like hardest competition so far in the UFC. Blah blah blah. But that is the traditional trajectory of a fighter. You obviously win a fight, you fight a harder fighter. So if you keep winning fights, you're always going to fight someone harder, and it's always going to be your newest challenge. But in this case, we can also do a little bit of easy MMA math to see the Petrino whiteboarded Bukowskis, made it look easy, and Pedro lost to Bukowskis. And this is the same year. It's not like removed by a year or 2 years, or like he was washed up in this year but not in that year. I think Vitor is just better on the feet and better on the ground. Simple as that. If Pedro wins this fight, it's using some sort of veteran acumen that he has gained in his 4 extra UFC fights. Other than that, there's really nothing to me that makes Pedro look enticing. So yeah, easily on Petrino here. confidently.
Yeah, so yep, this is one where we both agree on Vitor. And as you said, yeah, Tyson Pedro, he's
I think we lost Jose again. There is some potential. We have lost our boy Jose. I think Javid Basharat's got a really good chance to beat Eamon Zahabi. Trevor Jones, Ariki Ling. Yeah, I don't know though. Zahabi trains like GSP, I think. Maybe not. Oh yeah, see? Yeah, GSP. So I mean, who knows how much he's around him though? 36? Interesting. But in any case, that's about going to do it for us here at Moneyline MMA. It looks like Jose is frozen. Jose is gone. That's alright. It's just me. We're just looking at some final picks here before we part ways. Just as a quick reminder to anyone joining in late, my 5-weight Mohamed Mokayev, my 4-weight Umar, my 3-weight Shamil, my 2-weight Steve Urseg, and my 1-weight Vitor Petrino. Jose's 5-weight Umar. Jose's 4-weight Eric Anders. Jose's 3-weight also Shamil. 2-weight Vitor. And his 1-weight Mohamed Mokayev. That makes Umar lock of the week, but be careful betting on him. He's a very, very heavy favorite. I see the most value in betting on Mokayev. He's minus 290. That's insane value. That fight should be minus 800, if not more. Thanks everybody for listening. Jose is going to be signing off early. I'm out of here. We will of course be back next Monday at around 5:30 in the afternoon to check in to UFC 299. Hey Jose, I'm just letting everybody know that we're going to be back next week for UFC 299. Sean O'Malley is going to be defending his belt a week from Saturday. So we'll have our picks for you guys and, of course, our thoughts on the main event there. And I think the BMF belt, if I'm not mistaken, is being fought for that card too. Or no, sorry. Maybe it's not the BMF belt. I forget which order it is, but I think we might have a 5-minute co-main is what I'm trying to say for that fight card. So exciting stuff. Thanks for listening and have a great week.